Thank you, Attorney Folger. Attorney Swinensky.
In around 2016, Len Kachinsky was facing a trip to the hospital for cancer treatment. He had already decided to end his private practice because of this diagnosis, but the release of making a murderer assured that that portion of his career was likely over. He could still practice doing criminal appeals from the state public defender. They didn't require many court appearances, and he could read transcripts while stuck in a hospital bed. It was something. It meant he could still practice. Len had always been active in civic life. He and his wife get involved in politics and consider election night parties sort of a date night. He's been municipal judge of the town of Fox Crossing, formerly town of Menasha, for some time. He sees it as an opportunity to use his skills and feel like he's serving his community. It gave him joy and pride, and he described in an email in April, it was one of his main sources of emotional satisfaction at this point in his life. When he was about to go to the hospital, one of his major worries was who would take over for Sue Hermes, who was the prior municipal court director, who had been there when Len arrived and had managed so many things. It had made things run smoothly. He was worried, how was this job I enjoy going to go? Now, in April of 2016, he received a Facebook message from Mandy Bartell. They had already been on Facebook friends, like much of the rest of the Allegheny County courthouse. I should pause for a minute. You're going to hear testimony that Len's pretty well known around Allegheny County. He's been practicing in the county for over 30 years, and over time people get to know you, especially when you're Len Kachinsky. You will hear testimony that his reputation of being odd and quirky. But each of the witnesses that say this will say they're unsatisfied with that definition and will tell you as if it should be self-explanatory when they describe him. He's just Len. You will hear as well that they know he heard a meow randomly on occasion, that he'd be whistling through the day when he goes to court, that he would occasionally break into odd political comparisons, not connect to the conversation they were having. You would hear testimony from a witness that would tell you she would run with Len, and if he would pass a flagpole, he would stop and salute. Another witness will talk about him suggesting her next charity drive be for blood cancer, and then sort of excessively shares that he has 5 years to live. But from each of these witnesses, you will hear that they found him endearing, if a little odd at times. So in April of 2016, Mandy Bartell had heard about a job from the town of Menasha Municipal Court. It came to her via courthouse gossip, like so much information does in a small courthouse. She took advantage of the opportunity to use Facebook and reached out to Len about the job. She asked about the job, got the posting, and with smiley face emoticons, asked for good luck that she be found the best candidate for the job. She would later teach Len how to use emoticons. You will hear about their friendship that grew. And yes, friendship, what the evidence will show. This friendship developed after the job started and while Mr. Kachinsky was in the hospital at the beginning of the job. You'll hear about 4 Judge K challenge runs where Mandy went with Judge Running. On one occasion brought her sister, and with a co-worker on another. And on a side note, you'll hear from another witness that she has absolutely no idea what a Judge K challenge run is. And this is just another one of Len's things. It's just another example of Len being Len. You will hear how one of these first runs, Ms. Bartell, as often happens, people run together, spilled her story of all the things she hadn't liked about her previous boss, and left Len with a great deal of concern that he would not be that boss, but would have a positive relationship. You'll hear about Len's strong bracelets made in support of Len when he was in the hospital that people wore on the courthouse, posted on Facebook. You'll see pictures actually of Ms. Bartell and her son wearing several of these bracelets. You will hear testimony how Ms. Bartell describes how happy she is in this job, how she described it as her happy place. how she planned Len's first comeback party from the hospital at holidays. How she went to the bar with Len and his wife to plan it. How they then organized the party together. You'll hear how they did a Christmas gift exchange in December of 2016 and went out to lunch together, she and her husband, he and his wife, and exchanged gifts. How she was upset about the gift she gave him not being good enough. You'll hear about how she told him that she was in tears, worried about his welfare when she hadn't heard from him in the hospital in December of 2017. This is a friendship. Now, in April, late March of 2017, yes, sorry, of 2017, he did something that changed everything. He posted a comment on Ms. Bartel's Facebook page. Now, he posted this in the comment section of another post somebody put. And what he wrote in response to a post that says, "Hey, where are you? I haven't heard from you in a while." He posted, "She's on her second honeymoon at an undisclosed location." That's it. One Facebook post, she's on her second honeymoon. You will hear Ms. Bartel described as that just getting too much into her personal life. And people asking all kinds of questions, and that being a bridge too far. You will hear next that Ms. Bartel, Len shared with Ms. Bartel that her location had came up on his Facebook feed. Len had become Facebook friends with Ms. Bartel's mom after Ms. Bartel's mom had added her to prayers in her church when he was in the hospital. And as Mandy put it in interviews to officers, they didn't think Len was going to make it. Len had already sent a message to, it was Barb Strobel, as Ms. Bartel's mom, letting her know that her GPS location shows up in his phone. He told that to clerks at the courthouse as well, saying, "Hey, your GPS location shows up in my Facebook feed." You see, at this time, and I don't know if it still works this way, if you were a certain friend or had selected certain features on Facebook, you'll hear Attorney Kachinsky testify that when you went to certain areas, it would show up in his news feed, and we'll describe what a news feed is for those who aren't Facebook friendly. It would show up in his news feed that someone was near you. Len will testify about certain attorneys that show up when he goes to different areas. And he'll testify that Facebook is a big part of his life. That he reads it on a regular basis, that he follows friends, family, that his alerts pop up on his phone, that he follows posts from the animal shelter where he volunteers at. And so he shared the information on Ms. Strobel's location. Ms. Bartel, who was only half listening to him at the time, turned and asked what he said and how he got it. Now Len, unfazed, because Len is Len, said, "Oh, here's my phone. I did it right here. This is how I find it." And showed it to her. She took this information straight to Human Resources and said, "Len is tracking my mother." Now, around this time is the first point at which Mandy says Ms. Bartel says she wants less contact, where she says anything is wrong. And she says at this point that she wants to keep it work-related because they're going paperless and wants to focus on her job. Now, it's important that that first email in April, she lies. And she'll say later she lies when she says, I was worried about what's going paperless. That's not the reason. But she gave Mr. Kachinsky the impression that the issue with non-work-related conversation was that she wasn't able to get to her work. She'll double down on this position several times, and you'll hear evidence that she brings this up again and again to Attorney Kachinsky throughout those 2 months period. And in fact, the first time you ever heard her say, "I was lying," was when she was meeting with officers in May of 2018. You'll hear more testimony about Len being Len, admittedly meowing sitting in her office, telling a story that seems to come from nowhere. And even though Ms. Bartel is only half listening, you'll hear about Len seemingly confused by what has happened since they've been friends. Send her a reset button, saying, "Let's start a relationship over." And you'll hear about an email that Ms. Bartel says it was the tipping point, where specifically what the email says is, "Women are from Mars, men are from Venus. It's sometimes understand that things seem minor to me might seem a bigger deal for someone else." she described this as a tipping point, that at this point it's over. This is in June of 2016. I'm sorry, 2017. So what we have is a Facebook post. Him saying, your mom came up on my Facebook feed, Len, and a reset button. And that was too much. That was it. She was done. She had no contact with him. And all this occurred only months after she's messaging him how concerned she's about how he's doing at the hospital. Only months after she's messaging him that she is crying because she's not heard that he's okay. Now, the state said that she asked for one small thing. She asked for no non-work-related conduct. And it's going to be important right here, at this moment, that you look at what happened. Because you'll hear evidence of what she asked for is no non-work-related conduct because she's concerned about work being done. You'll hear testimony that Len agreed to not have any contact outside of work if that's what she wanted. Realized the friendship was done shortly thereafter. But continued to, I think now, continued to ask for a low-level personal relationship. That when you come into work, we should be able to say, how's it going? How was your weekend? Water cooler conversation. That we should be able to interact with the humans without an officer watching everything we do. And without restriction that I never say anything about my life or you never say anything about yours. That's what he continues to ask for after that June 1st. Low-level personal relationship. Now, I'm going to pause for a minute because we're going to talk about those elements. And I'm going to talk about the first one specifically. Because the state needs to prove to you today that the defendant intentionally engaged in a course of conduct directed at an individual, in this case the individual, Nancy Bartel. Now, up until June 1st, his course of conduct solidly directed at her. No question. At that point, you think she's your friend, they're not communicating what the bounds of the relationship should be, pretty much not going to argue. But starting June 1st, she made a small request. The village of Fox Crossing came with a hammer. At that point, they began monitoring every court section. Starting in early June, they had an officer in the room. Now, you'll hear testimony that officer was there just for one occasion because a human resources person wasn't available. But that's not what Len Kachinsky saw. What Mr. Kachinsky saw was there was a little conflict in his office, and suddenly the village is sending cops into his courtroom. Their follow-up was sending a complaint to the Judicial Commission trying to move him from the bench. From June of 2017 to November of 2017, they will supplement that complaint 8 times. I have a binder this thick of what they submitted to that Judicial Commission trying to remove him from office. Everything he did, every movement, constantly an effort. They passed legislation at some point that if Mr. Kachinsky did successfully fire Ms. Bartel, that she would be placed in another office, the job that he was removing her from would be reduced to minimum wage and 20 hours a week. You'll hear that they filed a lawsuit, the village of Fox Crossing, and Ms. Bartel alleging intentional infliction of emotional distress and seeking a judgment against Mr. Kachinsky. So at this point, things turn from being about Len and Mandy. They were about Len responding to the village of Fox Crossing coming after him with a hammer and trying to manage his own courtroom. And if he's not going to be able to have an assistant who he can be in the room with without supervision, then one of them has to go. The job can't continue, can't function like that. So he wasn't going to leave. Again, this was his one source of emotional satisfaction. So he began to battle with the village over a way to remove her. Or if they wanted, they could have put her someplace else. Now the other element we're going to talk about is that Len knew or should have known that his behavior was causing, and this is important, this is where you're going to be asked to hear this, to use your common sense, your knowledge and evidence to apply what this means. That he knew or should have known that he was causing serious emotional distress. That's not emotional distress, that's serious. And we'll talk more about that later, but that's important to understand. It has to be something more. And you have to understand that when you're trying to figure out, did Len know or should have known, the question isn't, would I have known that position? Would another reasonable person have known? Your question is, Len Kachinsky, the guy we know, with the processing power he has, with the manner in which he behaves, the information he was given was, should he have known? Or did he in fact know he was causing serious emotional distress? You'll hear about Len's continual efforts to get it back to a normal work environment, a low-level personal relationship. You'll hear about how it escalated. And you'll hear at one point how Len had hired an attorney to deal with these matters, and his attorney had been negotiating with the village a way that he could step down. He could walk away from this with dignity, but it wasn't accepted. What you're going to hear today and tomorrow is a collection of the same facts and events. I don't think we're going to argue about much of what happened. Probably agree on every fact we put forward. But they're perceived by two people in two completely different fashions. And because of that, you will not hear sufficient information today to change your mind from the view that he is not guilty to guilty of the crime of stalking.